We have respect for every living entity. And so there's living entities in the bug bodies, in the plant bodies, in the animal bodies, in the human bodies, in black bodies and white bodies, and all bodies. And all these lives matter. So we don't, and they all matter to God. They all matter to Krishna. So we don't harm anything because they feel pain and they actually have a relationship with God, though they've forgotten it. And that's why the karma has caused them to have those particular bodies. So anyway, so this verse says, it's a very important verse that you can learn. You should memorize it if you get a chance. Damodar can tell you this verse or give you the actual quote. So what it means is that Guru, Krishna is in the heart and he hears everyone's prayers. Everyone's prayers. Everyone, every second throughout eternity. Doesn't matter, there's no restrictions, he's there. And it's not that he's not listening. He's listening. And when he hears the living entity praying to him, like if I call out your name, Mike, right? Yes. So if I call out your name, Mike, you heard that and you'll respond, right? Damodar, I call out your name like that. So this means that God is not, if we can do that on a very low level here, God can do it on a high level. In other words, through the heart. And when he hears us call out his name, he responds. And then as we start our bhakti path, we start to discover little miracles in our lives. Things click. Something happens. We're thinking about somebody and all of a sudden they just show up before us. Now, we may think that's luck or it's just some kind of premonition or this or that, but it's trying to know, I'm here. I'm here and I hear you. It's the beginning. It's the beginning. I'll tell a really quick story. I hope Damodar doesn't kill me later because I keep telling too many stories. But I was driving alone one night, probably around 1 o'clock in the morning from Arizona to California. Damodar. I was driving a long road. It's very dark. There's no lights. And I was lost. If you ever driven down those roads in Arizona at night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no lights and it's just pitch black. So I kept thinking, where am I? I'm just driving and driving and driving. And that's kind of like life. You know, you don't know where you are. You're not really sure where you're going. You hope you're on the right path, but it's just dark. So off in the distance, there was a little bit of a light. And I kept driving and I got to that light and I found that there was in the middle of nowhere, there's this gas station. So I go in and I asked the young guy there, if he could help me, but then there were some customers. And so I went across the street in my van. I was driving my van. I went across the street to Denny's restaurant. In the parking lot, they had lights. Now I'm kind of telling about myself. I kind of doing this in reverse. Sorry about that. So it's all significant in the sense I discover Krishna's interaction with us. So I drove across the street where there was I wasn't interfering with customers coming into the gas station and like that. And I sat in the parking lot in my van under a light and I'm looking at the map and I still can't figure it out. Don't know where I am. And all of a sudden a young man comes out of the back door and of Denny's restaurant. And, I rolled down my window and I asked him, can you give me a little guidance? I'm kind of lost and I need some bearing here. I have my map, like you have a Bhagavad Gita, but I need someone to explain this to me. So he said, yes, sure. And he made it very easy for me to understand. He clarified everything. Then before I left, I said, here, by the way, I have a couple of small books for you. One was Life Comes from Life or something like this, maybe a Bhagavad Gita, because I always carry books wherever I go. just in case. And he saw this book, and I was telling him a little bit about the book, and tears started to come in his eyes. Now, we just met each other, but this is the power of Krishna consciousness, little miracles that happen along the way, little miracles that convince us that I'm going the right way now, and God is interacting with me. He's making things available to me. And he said, you know, I'm in a really bad time in my life right now. Things are very difficult for me. Thanks so much. So here I am in the middle of nowhere, but Krishna guided me to that spot, and this young man comes out in a very difficult time in his life. He comes out to have a break. It's dark out there. We meet. He gets a book about Krishna, which was the perfect answer to his questions. In his heart, he has these questions, and Krishna is saying, here you go. These are the answers, and here's someone who can make me available. So that's kind of the meaning of Guru Krishna Kripai Pai Bhakti Lata Beach, that Krishna is in the heart. He hears you. Don't be doubted about that, please. Don't have any doubt. As you progress on this bhakti path, you'll discover this more and more. Every devotee does. It actually makes it it's very enlivening and enriching, because we realize we're not actually alone. Krishna is there at every step, even in our most difficult times. And he sends his devotees to teach us how to get to him, how to know him, how to have a relationship with him. And that's the meaning of this book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar of Devotion. Bhakti is a connection with Krishna. Bhakti, Lata Bij, means the seed of devotion. Krishna is in the heart. He gives you this seed. He plants that seed through his representatives, especially the bona fide Guru, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And that's planted in the heart. And if you nourish the seed, if you give it light by reading the Bhagavad Gita, the Nectar of Devotion, these books, and if you associate with other devotees like Damodar Prabhu and others, they can answer all your questions. And then the plant of devotion begins to sprout. It starts to grow. And then it goes up to the lotus feet of the Lord. And then it's like Jack and the Beanstalk, right? That story, Jack and the Beanstalk. He plants it and it goes up and he climbs like that. So this is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion. Rasamrita means rasa, the nectar of ras. Rasa means my relationship with Krishna or God. So there's 5 primary forms of relationship. And it starts with Shanta. You probably know, because Buddhism, this word is used, Shanta. What it means is kind of awe and veneration. I recognize that God is there. Actually, this is a higher level of human life. It's one of the higher levels of consciousness. There's 5 levels of consciousness, starting with trees and weeds, plants like that. And then through the samsara, we come to the animal kingdom. And then we come to the immoral and lawless human society. And we make it gradually to this point where we're now. This is called Vikasita Chetana, which means the light is turning on. And now you see yourself as you actually are, as an eternal soul. But now once we understand, okay, I am eternal, and I have a relationship with God. What am I supposed to do? This is what Bhakti, the Nectar of Devotion, is what to do with this knowledge, with this human form of life. So that's Shantaras. It doesn't include any service, but what it includes is awe and veneration. Then the next stage is Dasya Ras, which means service. Like, first of all, we're introduced, like two lovers in the beginning, they're introduced. They come in contact with each other and there's some attraction. That's Shanta. And then Dasya means, now I want to do something for you. I just show you my love. It's natural. This is a reciprocation. One partner does, the other partner does the thing. And this is how they showed their love for each other. Accepting, giving, this is a reciprocation of love. So that's Dasya Ras. Then the next stage is friendship with God. And if you've been reading the Bhagavad Gita, have you been reading the Bhagavad Gita? Is she reaching for it? Oh, all right. So the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying to Arjuna, he says, because you're my friend, I'm going to make this knowledge available to you. I'm going to help you. So that's friendship. A friend is there for another friend, especially in a time of need. As that saying goes, a friend indeed, or a friend in need is a friend indeed, like that. So from that platform, we come to the platform of more affection in the terms of parental affection, which you'll learn through reading the Nectar of Devotion. And then finally in a relationship of paramar. That is very high consciousness. But Krishna makes himself available through these 5 different rasas in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in this Nectar of Devotion. He makes himself available in these 5 different rasas. So now I'm going to get just a little technical, and please don't get bored, because I don't mean to make you bored. It's not boring at all. And I know it can be, especially like me, I like to talk, and I like to talk about Bhakti. And I've studied for so many years, and I know some things, and I like to make them available for others, especially that are just starting out. I came to Krishna consciousness when I was like 21, maybe 19, maybe. I was following a yogi by the name of Baba Ram Das and others, and I was a hippie, and I was learning to become a vegetarian and like that. And but I wanted something higher. It wasn't really satisfying to me, and I also in the beginning was a little impersonal, and that didn't appeal to me, that I would just reach my own personality. I give up my own self. I stopped being a person. I want to be a person. I don't want to just be like the air inside a pot. The pot is like the body. This is the philosophy of impersonalism. The pot is like a body, and you are like the air within the pot. And when the time of death, the pot breaks, you come out, and then you merge with the air outside. I didn't like that idea. I like having relationships. I like having friends. I like having relationships with my nephews, my grandchildren. This is all very meaningful. And so we asked the question, where does that come from, that I like this? Where does that idea of having friends and a lover and someone to love, where does that come? Is it artificially imposed? No, it's not artificially imposed. In fact, that's our real nature. So to artificially impose impersonalism on us is not attractive at all. What is attractive is to have a relationship with God, with Krishna and his devotees. I'm a married man, and I've been with my wife for 45 years now. I have a child, a son, and he has his family, and I've got 3 grandchildren, which, you know, who I love very dearly, and they love me too. I've got a wonderful wife who is a wonderful cook and liked by so many people. Probably They like her alone. They like me because I'm being too serious. And he could really well. So, but anyway, yeah. So having relationships with people or with others, it's who we are. We need to deny. We need to embrace that, and then we need to stand that. Why I'm like this? Why do I feel like there's something eternal? I don't want to just, like in this life, it's like a river. You stand at the beginning of you stand somewhere at a river bank, and you look in the direction, and you see the one that you don't see from where the origin of that river is. And then you look in the other direction and you see the river, the water is going somewhere, but you don't see beyond a certain point. You don't see where that water is going. So this is time. And we're like leaves that are floating in that river through time. And sometimes we come in contact with each other and we call that friendship, or we call that lover, or we call it children, or this thing or that thing. And it's natural to feel pain when we are separated from those family members and friends. It's just natural because that's our eternal natural position. So now we're moving on to the three different, what is that? Three types of devotional service, I think, yes? Damodar?
From sadhana to prema.
Huh?
From sadhana to prema.
Okay, so sadhana. So I'm going to pre-state what sadhana is by describing a very popular term, dharma. Have you know the term dharma? Yes. So dharma is a very popular term. Dharma means basically two things. You can bring it down to two things. One means that's the dharma of to act. And the other one is my work. So within I want to make this very simple, not saying that you're not intelligent enough to understand complicated, because I'm sure both of you are. Anyone who becomes a devotee or is attracted to devotional life is considered in the great works of spiritual literature of India to be the most intelligent. Because finally, after countless numbers of lives in this cycle of samsara, going through amoeba life, worm life, bird life, aquatic life, tree life, all these different 8,400,000 species of life, we finally made it to the human life. So in the human life, Krishna has given us an opportunity to live like humans. We can be immoral and lawless, but that is not compatible with God consciousness. So what is compatible is to understand the ultimate laws, the laws of nature, the laws of godliness, like that. The laws that are in the material laws. What is good for one country is very bad for another country, but they're both laws. What is law for one section of society is not acceptable for another section of society. So those are temporary laws. So now, dharma means two things. There's a term, a Sanskrit term for dharma, means nitya dharma. Nitya means eternal. So nitya dharma, and that's what we want. We want eternality, and we want dharma in this eternal form. But we also know of a temporary dharma, and it's called naimitika dharma. Naimitika means temporary. So temporary dharma means like my occupation, my status in life, my household situation, like that. These are all temporary. And then gradually it is meant to serve us so that we can reach the eternal Dharma. So these are things that we can understand by reading these great literatures. So without making it too confusing, Dharma is divided in these two categories, Nitya Dharma and Naimittika Dharma, permanent Dharma and temporary Dharma. So if you want something permanent, if you want to discover your eternal self and eternal God, don't act on temporary Dharma, because they have the same reward. So now the laws in Krishna in the Vedic literature says Vedascha savaraham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedeva chaham, which means this knowledge about all these things that exist in the material world, just like when you get some kind of machine, there's usually a manual that goes with the machine. It's just natural. And it's made by the manufacturer. So the manufacturer says, here's my machine, this car or whatever, and here's the manual that goes with it. So you know how to use it, who the manufacturer is, and what to do. There's a troubleshooting guide in there to do what to do when things go wrong. So the Bhagavad Gita, the Nectar of Devotion, these are like those manuals to help us understand the machine and to help us know how it works. So how does it work? In terms of Dharma, there's a term called Varnashram Dharma. So Varnashram Dharma means 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams. So 4 Varnas means 4 occupations. In other words, 4 classifications of occupations. Like the teachers, they're called Brahmins in Sanskrit. There's the warrior class, and they're called the Kshatriyas. There's the farmers and cowherd men and women. They're called the Vaishyas, business. And then there's the Sudras, the worker class. So this is just, and then in terms of ashram, there's single, married, retired, renounced. This is the cycle, like 2 leaves in a river. It happens, has a beginning, has a middle, and it stays for some time, it reproduces some byproducts. It dwindles, like I'm dwindling, old age is dwindling, and then not too far, we move on to another body. So then we take whatever we have acquired in this life in terms of eternity that stays with us. Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita, that whatever we've acquired in bhakti, that's permanent. And when we go on to the next life, like you two, you must have had some contact with bhakti in your previous life. Yoga, practice some yoga, that stayed with you, it's natural for you. And now in this lifetime, Krishna is saying, here's some more. You're getting closer. I'm giving you some guidance. I'm going to give you people who know me a little better, and they're going to help you. And if you're receptive to that, then at the end of this life, you'll take another human form of life, no more animal life, no more tree bodies, no more of these kind of in samsara. Now you become a human, which you've become, and then you get further down the path back to home, back to Godhead. So if we take those 4 occupations, this Dharma, this Varnashram Dharma, and we apply those, in other words, Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, to his friend Arjuna, he says, even though you think you're a warrior on this battlefield, even if you think you're that, which actually eternally you're not, but temporarily you're acting like this. So even if you think you are, just that action to me, no karma. And if you do that, that's the beginning of your devotional service. So in the beginning, as all the way through, if we have some nice vegetarian, because we're vegetarians, as you most likely know, if you have some nice food, some nice vegetarian food, you can put it in front of a picture of Krishna, Prabhupada, like that, and you can offer it very simply from your heart. Please accept this offering. This is my little bit of love, just like a child with the parents. You know, we know that the children get the money. They don't have a job yet, so they don't have any money. But the parents give them the money. And then the parents see what the child is going to do. So if the child gets something for mom and dad, oh, that's so nice. Let me reward you some more, right? Because it's rightly used. Little child draws a little picture. It's not a Rembrandt or Picasso or anything. Gives it with love and devotion to mom and dad, or to brother or sister or whatever. They say, oh, that's so nice. This is the most, I'm going to treasure this forever. Like my little granddaughter, she had these little stickers, these little hearts. And she gave me when she put it on my computer when I was visiting. She said, no, come on, or Grandpa, I want you to remember my heart. You don't forget my heart. I love you very, very much. Don't forget me. And then the next time that I saw her, the heart fell off. So she saw me and she said, do you still have my heart? And I said, I have your heart, but it fell off. Can you get a new one? And she gave me a new one. She went in the room and she got me a new heart. So, but anyway, the point is, I can afford all those little stickers, but they mean nothing to me. But when they're given with love and devotion, then it means everything. That's reciprocation. So Krishna is called Bhagavan. Bhaga means opulence. There's 6 opulences. And Van means the full possessor of. So Bhagavan means everything is coming. Our intelligence, our bodies, our wealth, our home, our strength, our renunciation, everything is coming from Bhagavan, Krishna. So he doesn't need anything from us. We have nothing to offer anyway. Nothing's coming from us. It's all coming from him. But if we utilize some of that we get from him and we give it back. Also, you know, this is not gender biased. Krishna appears a few times. There's a very wonderful pastime where he appeared as female to trick a very demoniac man who was lusty after women. But anyway, that's another story. You'll learn it someday. But anyway, so the point is, he's in the heart. He knows. He provides, and then offer that back. So he provided the food. He provided the ability to cook the food. He provided you the money to go get the food or grow the food. Like we have a big organic garden in our front yard and also down in the field. And we grow a lot of our own food. It's all organic. We're vegetarians. So, but we always think of how this wonderful miracle coming out of the ground, tiny little seed, and then it becomes a big plant. Of course, I mean we, because I just mean we in the sense of devotees. Personally, I don't cook. My wife wouldn't eat it. After 45 years, she never has really anything. I cook, and I tried, but anyway, she's the better cook in the family, and she'll eat what she. So anyway, so we take that and we make something nice. We think, you know, okay, let me make it for Krishna, and you know, then we offer it. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram puspam palam toyam yome bhakti prayachati. So whatever you offer, he says, even if you're so poor that all you can offer me is some water or a leaf off a tree, but just offer it with bhakti, meaning love. His heart is so tender, so soft, so compassionate. He says, if because of your karma, you can't offer me big things, that doesn't matter. He's not interested in anything. All the wealth, everything is coming from him already. He's giving some endowment to us. He's giving us this to see how will we use it. Will we use it to reciprocate, or will be greedy with it, selfish with it? If you're greedy and selfish with it, you can't realize any of these things. But if you share it, and especially if you offer first with love and devotion, then he'll see, very nice. I want to have a relationship with this one. And he's obviously seen it here with these two guests, students, because you wouldn't be sitting there listening to this if you didn't have that love already. So the Nectar of Devotion describes how to clean the dust. For countless numbers of lifetimes, we've been in the material world, and we've accumulated so much dust in our hearts. It's called anartas. So there's this process of anarti. In the beginning, we have some shraddha, and then shraddha means faith, a little faith. We read something, we heard something, we got inspired, we heard the holy name, we chanted a little bit. Try to at least commit to 1 round every day if you can. Then you'll see some miracles happening. You'll be inspired. And then your teachers will tell you, okay, that's very good. Now, if you do this, and if you avoid that, then you'll make more progress. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Let me try it anyway. Just like when you go into Costco. In Costco, they have these people that are standing there with samples. And they say, here, try this. Right? I don't know what this is. I've never had that before, but with a little bit of faith, this person seems nice. So let me take a sample. Says, oh, good. I'll buy that. Right? So that's what Krishna consciousness is like. In the beginning, a little sample. Let's chant a little bit of Hare Krishna. Read a little bit of the books. Associate with nice devotees like Damodar. And then you'll say, actually, there might be something here for me. Require spiritual state. So that leads us to purchase. What is that purchase? The purchase is love of God. And how do I get that purchase? How do I acquire the what do you say, money to acquire that product of love of God? It's called Bhakti, devotion. It's called your good actions. Actions in Krishna consciousness, it's called. So if we do like with a little love, then that's called Bhakti Sukriti. Sukriti means like, what do you call it? Pious activity. There's 3 kinds of pious activities. I'm not going to get into that too much, but when we meet somebody on the street, like I remember a few years back, I was in Denman. I don't know if you know where Denman is. It's downtown Vancouver. All right, so there's a place down there. It's quite, what do you say, progressive. But anyway, there was this young woman. She's probably 18 years old, 16, 17, 18 years old. And she had a sign in front of her and said, could please give it, some donation. And so I like to give money because I don't want to see this money being used for buying some meat or buying some intoxication or something which is contrary to their good spiritual health. So I went into a nearby restaurant that I know, a vegetarian restaurant, and I got a sandwich and some potato chips for her and a little drink. And on the way to go back to her, I offer it in my heart. And it doesn't require even an altar in the beginning. You may not, there's circumstances. It's very practical. So I went back and I gave it to her. And she was, of course, very grateful because I think she hadn't had anything to eat for a while. But that's the whole point, is that these kind of acts, there's acts in the mode of goodness, there's acts in the mode of passion, there's acts in the mode of ignorance. So each one of these acts gives us a different result. So the action that we want to take, the most, that gives us the best result, an eternal result, is bhakti. So you put that vegetarian food in front of a picture of Krishna. My dear Krishna, I don't know any mantras. It's okay, Krishna says, but could you please accept this? I have a little bit of love. I don't know so much, but can you please? And be assured, he'll accept it. He says that in the Bhagavad Gita. Patram puspam palam toyam yo me bhakti prayachiti. I will accept it, he says. I will accept that. If you offer me with whatever little love you have. And by accepting that, that gives us bhakti sukriti. It gives us these pious spiritual credits. So bhakti sukriti means eternal spiritual credits. And that's what we cash in. That gives us love of Godhead. So that was one of the 3 points to this class, was how to acquire, I think, I can't remember the word, but to acquire love of God. So that's it. Now, I'll just take a couple more minutes because I think I only have 1 hour and I want to make sure that we get some questions in there. Does the video cut off at exactly 1 hour?
No.
Amadar? No, okay. So if I run over, is it a
No.
little okay? Okay. No? Did you say no?
No problem. No problem.
Okay, all right. So going back to these 5 levels of consciousness. When we get to the human form of life, we engage in spiritually pious activities, like offering your food to a picture, by associating with others who are like-minded like this, bhakti conscious, by moving a little closer, getting a little bit more association, by reading these books, by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, which is primary. If we chant this Hare Krishna mantra, it's like a vacuum cleaner that removes all the unwanted dust from the mirror of the heart. And when we clean the heart, maybe that's not the best example, a cloth cleaning the mirror and the heart. What happens when you clean the mirror in the bathroom? There's sometimes little things that go accumulate over. You don't even notice it. And then, oh my goodness, I had to clean the mirror. So when we clean the mirror or we clean a window, then we can actually see ourselves. So the heart is like that. The heart is like a mirror, and we have to keep it clean. Then we can actually see ourselves. We can see ourselves as eternal living entity with actually an eternal relationship with God, Krishna, the most meaningful relationship. And when we have our family members and others, also their devotees, those relationships with family members become even more enriched. All these friends, all these different relationships we have can be like so many zeros because they can all be temporary. But what happens when I put a 1 in front of all these zeros? It becomes most valuable. So that's what spiritual life is about, putting 1 in front of all these zeros, because in the end, everything will become 0. This body will become 0. My family I'm separated from. I could lose my job. The money I spend is gone. All zeros. All zeros. But we put Krishna in front, and all those zeros have value because I used my energy. I used my money. I used my prayers. I used my consciousness. I used this body. I used everything in Krishna's service. And then it has the most value. And then what happens at the time of death? Now you're put into a much more valuable situation. That takes faith. So simply from the faith, sadhu sangha means associating with devotees. And then bhajana kriya, where we meet a guru, we take initiation, all the bad karma is washed away like that. I mean, these are all scientific things that we can read about in these great literatures. But for now, we don't want to make it too complicated. When you feel happiness by chanting Hare Krishna, let it be known, we can know the reason why we're feeling happiness is because we used to be that. We used to be love Krishna. You used to have a relationship, but now to the material world, and we became contaminated, and our hearts become covered, and we think we're something we're not. I think I'm a young man, or I think I'm an old man, or I think I'm a white person, I think I'm a black person, or I think I'm a female, or I'm thinking this or this or this or this. And that just takes us through this cycle of samsara. And the cycle just keeps going around and around, 8,400,000 species. Once you were fish, once you were birds, once you were ghosts, once you were trees, once you were this, on and on and on. And we can't see where it started, like the river analogy, and we can't see where it's going to end. Our vision is very limited. So we have to approach those who know, who can see. So that's the value of human form of life, that we can inquire into this absolute truth. And by chanting Hare Krishna, all of this dust, all of this bad karma, like when you clap your hands and the birds fly away. So this is not sentimental. It's a fact. So we have religion. We can say my religion, Krishna consciousness. But when you combine that with philosophy, understanding, then it becomes whole. Otherwise, religion without philosophy is sentimental. And philosophy without religion, the joy of religion, can be a burden. It can be speculative and not very enlivening. So combine the two, the nectar of devotion, chanting Hare Krishna, that's the religion and the philosophy together, associate with devotees like that. So now briefly, I'll touch on those three things. The three, what was it? The three forms of devotional service. Damodar?
Well, sadhana, bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti.
Now I'm going to wind it up with these three. So there's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I can't remember what verse it is. It's in a very wonderful conversation with the Supreme Lord, where he's describing different meanings to a word. And the word bhakti is described because we want to know. We hear the word bhakti. What does it mean? Okay, a simple definition is bhakti means devotion, but I hear devotion, bhakti this, bhakti, hot bhakti, cold bhakti, bhakti to my car, devotion to my girlfriend or my boyfriend, my this thing or that thing. So many forms of devotion, right? So devotion to my dog, I could say that's my bhakti is my devotion to my dog or my cat. I got a cat. But there's actually 10 meanings, real defined meanings to the word bhakti. And the verse is Bhakti Sabdera Arthahai Dasa Vidikar Eka Prakar, which means there are 10 meanings for the word bhakti. One of them is sadhana bhakti. And the other 9 forms are prema bhakti. So sadhana bhakti means duitakar, eka vaidhi bhakti, raganuga bhakti are. So this one meaning of bhakti, sadhana bhakti, is divided into two. One means the rules and regulations. In other words, what should I do? What are those positive things that I should do? That's called vritti in Sanskrit. And then the nivritti means what I should not do, what I should steer away from. These are things that are like in the modes of material nature, which Damodar can explain later. Those are the things that I should stay away from, the negative things that are hurtful to my bhakti creeper. You don't pour oil, even though it's a liquid, you don't pour it on the plants. You pour water on the plants. Those are the negative and the positive. You don't put nuclear waste in your soil because the plants need nutrients, and it's not going to find it in nuclear waste. So you put you put nutrients in the soil that will help the growth of the plant. So the bhakti plant in the heart is like that. We need to ingest. We have 5 ingesters on this body. 5 ingesters are the ears, the smell, the eyes, the taste, and the touch. Those are our 5 knowledge acquiring senses. And the world around us, we ingest into our consciousness through our body those 5 senses. And they then condition us to act in a certain way. So bhakti means to avoid certain activities and to engage in other positive activities. And if we do that, then the heart becomes cleansed. And then we can start developing this emotion for love of God. It's like a baby. I'll give an example. Like I've got a little granddaughter, her name is Noah, and I think she's 2 years old. I'm not very good with this. But anyway, so my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters is 2 years old. And the first time I met her, she didn't know who I was. She didn't know how to talk to me. There was no interaction. Over time, she has learned to know my name, Grandpa, and like this, and there's development of loving reciprocation between us. She smiles to me, I smile to her. So this relationship is beginning. So in the beginning of bhakti, we need to know. We're still at the stage where we don't really know so much, but we want to develop a relationship. We're being introduced to that relationship. And we're being told that if we want the highest perfectional loving stage of life, this is where it comes from. So, but how do I act in a way that I can get the result of that? So that is sadhana bhakti. Certain rules and regulations, like I chant a minimum of 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra on my beads, right here. These are the beads. Damodar probably already introduced. So we 16 times.
They chant.
Did you say something?
I say they chant. They chant.
Okay, so. Oh, good. Okay, so it starts with chanting once, and then a regulation. That's what is called the Vaidhi, the rules and regulations of sadhana. Sadhana bhakti is half rules and regulations, and then half the spontaneous love. It's like a mother when she has a little baby in the middle of the night. They're not so good with this. I have to admit, I was never good at it. My son's not good with it. Maybe I've passed something negative down to him. I hope not, but my wife, my daughter-in-law are very good at it, that when the baby cries in the middle of the night, immediately, nobody has to tell her, the baby's crying. She hears it, and she spontaneously gets up, and there's loving reciprocation with the baby. That's part of this sadhana bhakti, is this, it's called raganuga bhakti. Raganuga means spontaneously engaging in loving service. And it's not just that I love somebody, but if I actually love, I want to do something for them. That's how I show my love. So that's sadhana bhakti. Now, when the rules and regulations, when we become accustomed to these rules, they're actually not in hindrances, and they're not something that is imposed on us over time. They are considered the rules and regulations of freedom, because they help us destroy the trust in the heart, cleanse the heart, and they help us develop this spontaneous attraction, this spontaneous love. When that spontaneous love develops, it's called Bhava Bhakti. So Bhava Bhakti means the emotional stage of love. Then after Bhava Bhakti is Prema Bhakti. So I mentioned these 10 meanings. One is Sadhana Bhakti, which is Dvaita Prakar, meaning two parts, like this railroad track. You can see on the railroad track, you can imagine on the railroad track, there's two rails. You can think one is Vaidhi Bhakti, or rules and regulations, and the other one is spontaneous. And that's how the train stays in motion. It stays fixed in its destination, and it makes progress because of those two. And gradually, love starts to develop. The heart opens up through Bhakti Yoga, and we reach the beginning stages of Prema Bhakti. So Prema Bhakti has 9 forms, starting fraction, and it develops into gradually it attaches a deep attachment. And I'm not going to get into that right now because there's 9, and it would take another hour for me to explain that. But Damodar can definitely explain that because he knows these things. And when we learn these things, it's so valuable. It makes sense. The world makes sense. Our relationships make sense. The consciousness of the 5 different levels of consciousness, the world around us makes sense. The goal makes sense. My actions, what I should be doing with my human form of life makes sense. Everything makes sense. It's the key that opens the door to spiritual kingdom. And the spiritual kingdom doesn't mean it's impersonal or without form. We have form here, we have relationships here, because somewhere there's something real and eternal there in a form, in forms, and it's being reflected like the water reflects something on the bank of the river, but it's in a perverted. Like when we look in the river, you've probably heard this analogy. When you look in the river, you see the tree on the embankment on the other side. But what you see is tilted, it's perverted. So the closest thing to you in this reflection is the top of the tree. The furthest thing is the root, because it's the furthest part of that reflection. So that's where we are. We're in this river, so to speak. What we think is permanent, or what we think is real, is actually a reflection of what actually exists elsewhere. It's not to be, it's not something to be concerned about, scared about. It actually quite makes sense after chanting the Hare Krishna mantra for some time. Then these things are revealed to us. So I think I should probably just stop right here. There's so much to say, but I could go on for hours and probably put everybody to sleep. So are there any questions that I can address, or comments or challenges, or something that maybe you're curious about that no one else has answered and you want to see if maybe I can, or something? Damodar?
I have a question. I mean, I want to let the others go first, but I'm afraid of going too much over time. Is because the next chapter is about the levels of Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama Adhikari.
Yeah.
Is these Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama Adhikaris, are they included in Vaidhi Bhakti or Raganuga Bhakti? Like a person that practices Raganuga Bhakti, can he be on the second level or the fourth level, because I like to make charts and I like to visualize things. And so I'm trying to visualize it. So where does these two correlate together? Like the sadhana bhakti, like bhava bhakti, one has to be uttama adhikari to be on bhava bhakti. That's my understanding. But then raganuga bhakti, what are the qualifications for one for raganuga bhakti? Maybe that's, I just want that for my own understanding. Maybe it's hopefully the others in the class can understand it. But so
Yeah.
raganuga bhakti is a more spontaneous level. And we can revisit that
You know, the thing,
next class. But I want to know these
Yeah.
levels. So
Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama Adhikari. Yeah, Adhikari
okay,
means, so basically
yeah,
what
but
there's,
so my question is, how do they? So my question is, Raganuga Bhakti, can one be a Madhyama and be on Raganuga Bhakti, or one has to be an Uttama to be on Raganuga Bhakti?
spontaneous attraction is in practice in sadhana bhakti. So we say Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Those are the beginning stages of practice. So we're practicing how to do these things. Just like, I guess we can give the example of when someone learns how to cook. They have an attraction, but in the beginning stage of learning, there's a practice. I have to practice cooking something, some cake or something like that, right? I have to practice. I have to practice in any occupation. That's part of sadhana bhakti, the practicing. But then gradually it becomes spontaneous. As I learn how to do it, I become like with my wife. My wife is more advanced in cooking than I am. So, you know, she can whip up something and throw in some spices and it's like, you know, $1 million deal. But so for that is no longer a regulation. So in the beginning, there has to be the practice, and that's what sadhana bhakti is. It brings us to the point of emotion, of bhava bhakti. So unless you're at least a madhyama adhikari, you can't experience. You can give it a little. You can get a little sample. You know, like in the Costco, you can get a little taste to encourage. Come on, here's a little something. But it's not going to last until you put your time in and you put your devotion in. When you pay the price, then you can have it full time. And then it's no longer spontaneous. It's no longer labor. It's a joyous activity because now the emotions are there. Whenever there's an emotion, we're in it. I want it. You know, the desire is there. But then gradually the prema is for the uttama adhikaris. So in the beginning there's practice, and then madhya means high state where it becomes more natural to me. I don't have to, just like when you drive a car, say for instance, in the beginning, you're, 10 and 4 or whatever it is, 10 and 2, and I've got to put my foot on the accelerator and on this brake or the gas pedal and this and that. And I have to do this. I have, in order to pass the beginning stage of getting your driver permit, do. But then the intermediate stage, when you actually get to drive, first you have to take the lessons, then you get to drive with somebody who's, you're a student driver. So that's kind of like the Madhya stage. But then you become a professional Indy 500 driver. That's the Uttama stage, where you're not thinking any longer. It's all just automatic. You're not thinking about it anymore. And that's the stage of the Uttama degrees.
Thank you. That actually helped me visualize it better. I'll come up with something and then I'll show it to you after.
Okay, sounds good.
Because
But
you know
let me
how I
say
like to
one-
make
I do. I'm the
images and
same
stuff
way.
like that.
I
Yeah.
need to have everything categorized because then I can see. It's just like if we see Bhakti in terms of a puzzle, it's all very unclear. I have no idea what this puzzle is. Maybe in the box it shows a picture. That's my only clue. But when I have the pieces scattered out in front of me, like if it's got 1,000 pieces or 5,000 pieces, and I'm looking at one little piece of this puzzle, it's confusing. And then I'm supposed to look at another piece and try to figure it out. And that's kind of, after a while, it's boring. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But when one piece of the puzzle is understood and it fits together with another piece of the puzzle, and then gradually over time, there's another piece of this puzzle that fits in and another piece. And then we start to see a flower, or we see a little water in this picture, or we see a house, or we see people. Gradually, the picture reveals itself, but that takes time, and we should just keep moving forward. Don't get frustrated. This little piece of the puzzle doesn't necessarily fit with this other piece of the puzzle. Not now, but there'll be a time when this piece of the puzzle that I'm learning now, because you're not going to memorize everything that I said today, and there's so much more. There's postgraduate study. There's the inner meanings of love for God. There's so much more, so much more. It's endless, it's eternal, it's undying, it's primeval. And it doesn't end when the body ends. It's eternal. So right now, I start with, here's my picture of Krishna. Like I remember when I was a hippie and I first started to join, I remember hearing somewhere, I don't know where I heard it. I remember hearing that if you're going to get the Bhagavad Gita, get the Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I remember clearly, I was probably about 16, 17 years old, and I remember walking down the street. And I remember there was an overpass above me, and I was walking across the street with a library, and I was thinking, I should go get that Bhagavad Gita. But then I thought, no, I was told that if I just read any Bhagavad Gita, it might contaminate my consciousness, so I better wait. As it turns out, my best friend, who I ended up living with, had a sister who had been to a temple, the Los Angeles temple. I was living in San Francisco at that time, and around Haight-Ashbury, like that. Anyway, so my friend's sister had a Bhagavad Gita, and she had some japa beads. She had gone to the temple, and they gave her these things. And Krishna knew my intention, my sincerity in my heart. And my friend just told me, my sister, she's got these books. You want any? And these beads. I said, yes, of course. And so by getting that, and then by reading a little bit, we hear about the 3 modes of material nature, the 5 levels of consciousness, samsara, reincarnation, vegetarianism, all these different things, dharma, naimitika dharma, nitya dharma, varnashram dharma, dharma for my car, all these different things. We don't know, it's new, but don't worry, because eventually everything is very clear, it becomes an enlightened experience from within the heart. It's the most joyful experience. And you will see, there's no question about it, you will see, every devotee does experience this. A little miracle happens. Krishna is saying, I'm here. I heard that prayer. I see that you're in anxiety about this. I'm going to give you a solution to this that you weren't even thinking it existed. These things will happen. It's a wonderful life being a devotee of Krishna, being a bhakti yogi. So aside from Damodar, are there any other questions? No. Okay. Just remember it, whatever you learn. It's one piece of the puzzle and you may not know what it fits into. Just accept it. A little faith. Like if I give you a jar of honey, you may have some experience what sweetness is like. I give you this jar of honey, you can't taste that sweetness through the jar. So you have to take my word for it. If you have faith in what I'm saying to you, and I give you some instructions, unscrew the lid, take your finger, taste it, chant the holy name, chant Krishna's names, read these books gradually. Yep.
I don't have a question, Baba Prabhu, but I just have a comment. I just wanted to tell you just personally, the Anartha aspect of it. It was something that came up in one of the very, very first classes I had, and it's basically what exactly you're talking about right now, where it was like I heard it, and it was exactly again how Damodar described it, how you did, where it was like a mirror of your heart, and you're basically like, you know, as you chant, you're slowly taking this cloth and you're cleaning it, and you're going to see who you are, like who you truly are, like after you kind of get rid of all these, well, you know, the accumulation of the material, right, that we've
Exactly
built up over all these years, and kind of like, you know, I've always had this sense that I'm a bigger guy and like an athletic guy, but I'm personally very artistic and like always very creative, and I always felt like I was really pigeonholed into being a certain person. Like everybody always had certain expectations of me and everything else, right? And exactly like what you said, where the Anartha concept was like a piece of the puzzle. I had no idea, but it was like this little tiny bit of faith, and I was like, okay, what do I have to lose, right? Like let's go and give this a try. Let's start chanting and see what happens.
Why not?
And it was exactly. And it's slowly been this process of like revealing, well, not even revealing, it's like uncovering who I always knew I was, but being comfortable enough to live that body, right? Live that like actuality, not be confined by the body, I guess, right? So I don't know if you're going to be coming back for any classes. So I just wanted to share that part where and also too, when you were talking about tuning into the heart, I just wanted to, I was at the temple a couple Mondays ago, and on my altar, I have a Sri Upanishad. And so the picture of Vishnu with the cobras in behind him and everything, for whatever reason, is the first time I saw that picture, like him standing in the ocean, and it called to me. I don't know why. So I kind of sat it there. And when I'd been chanting, it was almost like the picture was popping out of the book. Like it became surreal sometimes, like it almost like you'd be able to see like the texture of his robes, and so didn't really think about it, right? Just it's cool. This is a neat experience. And when I was talking to Manu Prabhu at the temple, I asked him about that specific picture, and he said that the same thing, that's Vishnu in your heart, you know. And while you're chanting this, he's really happy that you're asking for him to come back, and that you're acknowledging that like you've been listening to him. And it was just like just oh my God, like this, it made so much sense. And like as he was saying it was like what my heart had been saying all along. So it was funny because it was like the verbalization of a feeling, right? And so and it was like when you said tuning into the heart, I almost feel like it's like the heart is like this radio that we messed up the signal to, and like by chanting the Maha mantra, it's like you clear all the static, and you get to hear the true message coming through the station again, right? And so I just really connected with that. So I just wanted to just briefly comment on that. So thank you again so much.
Well, let me comment on what you commented on. When I was starting out, I'm also an artist. I do mostly graphite. So, you know, I do I used to own one of the biggest art galleries in a town here called Richmond. And I had in my gallery artists like Robert Bateman and Carl Brenders and, you know, and others, and we would do shows with them. But anyway, that was my occupation. When I first became a devotee, I was studying art in college and things like that. And then I became a devotee and I joined the art department, and I knew some of the best artists in the world and you know, in devotional art and like that. But before I became a devotee, actually, my friend, I was telling you about my friend, his sister, one of those books was the Sri Upanishad. And I actually took this picture of Vishnu that you're describing in half of the ocean, and I put it behind my TV set on the wall, so I could always look at it when I'm watching TV. I could always, because I used to like to turn off the volume and put some music on, and I'd have the movement going on the TV, and I would look at the, you know, Vishnu there. And now, back when I was a younger guy, there was a group called Mahavishnu Orchestra, John McLaughlin and the Mahavishnu Orchestra, because that's the crowd I used to hang out in. And so, you know, and I used to go to different concerts like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and those kind of things, you know, so that's where I came from. So I was into that kind of crowd, and Santana, when he used to wear white, I don't know, Carlos Santana and like this. So I met a lot of these artists, musical artists. And so I was always attracted to that. But, you know, then I met George Harrison. And George Harrison and Bob Dylan at a concert in Los Angeles. And I, you know, as a devotee, I walked up to them with some prasadam right after the concert. And I tell you, that was one of the most enlivening experiences of my youth, that I brought them a plate of prasadam. My friend and I brought 2 plates of prasadam, one for Bob Dylan and one for George Harrison. And while we were in that concert, I know I'm kind of going off the track. While we were in that concert, George Harrison was singing this song, My Sweet Lord. I really want to see you. I really want to be with you. And for a devotee, that really makes so much sense. And then when he's singing the Hare Krishna mantra, when he's singing that, of 10,000 people, I'm telling you, it makes your heart just, you know, your goose pimples everywhere. You know, everybody's chanting Hare Krishna. It's an incredible experience. And of course, at the end of the concert, we walked up to the stage and gave John, George, and Bob Dylan, these plates of prasadam. And of course, you know, John Lennon or George Harrison was a devotee anyway. But all these different kinds of experiences. When you can look back at my age, which is weird to say because I'm eternal. And I'm not this old buddy. I'm still that young guy. And you'll experience this as you get older. You don't actually age internally. You only age externally. That means that you're an eternal living entity. And the body may change, but you may change also to a better person, a more devoted person. But all these experiences through the life, when you look back, as I do, and I know that I've spent 3/4 of my life chanting Hare Krishna and experiencing the truth about all these little pieces of the puzzle and putting this picture together and seeing Radha and Krishna and all these wonderful years of, discovery, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I had opportunities to trade because the kind of people I knew, the kind of places I went and all these different experiences. But I was always true to self-realization. I'm the self, and I want to realize what I am. That's called self-realization. And that's through this process of Bhakti Yoga, of Krishna consciousness. So good for you. You might have been a yogi in your life. Both of you were certainly yogis in your previous life. And for the unsuccessful yogi, as Krishna says, the unsuccessful yogi in the previous life, like when I was a child, I used to think, what is the difficulty about walking on water? I can understand how that's possible. As a child, I used to think that. I used to have these dreams of laying in a bed of nails. Like, what's the big deal? You just lay this way and it's not going to poke through you. If you walk this way, you're going to walk on it. It's not a big deal. But there's certain kinds of mystic abilities that can deviate the yogi, that allow you to walk on water. Like Jesus Christ is known for having walked on water. That's a mystic power. And to become very small, or to be able to hear a conversation that's taking place many miles away, many kilometers away. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, the King Dhritarashtra is blind and he's not on the battlefield, but he has a secretary by the name of Sanjaya. And Sanjaya is telling him word for word the conversations that are taking place there. That's actually a mystic ability. In the gross sense of this mystic, subtle mystic ability, the phone was created. And now we see, we don't need to have those lines connecting. Now it's through the atmosphere. So when you refine this down to the subtle body, we have two bodies, gross body and a subtle body, in addition to who we are as eternal spiritual bodies, then those things can be discovered. Just like the nuclear weapon was discovered, which is part of the Vedas. It's called the Donner Veda. The Germans discovered that through researching Donner Veda. All these things are incredible knowledge, bits of knowledge that you're going to discover. And it's going to be a very wonderful journey for both of you. And you might have been yogis in your last life. Excuse me. Krishna says for the unsuccessful yogi, he goes to the heavenly planets, or she goes to the heavenly planets. After a certain duration of wonderful existence materially there, you come back to this realm. This is the middle realm in the universe. And in this realm, you again have the opportunity to continue on with your yoga. And hopefully you go into Bhakti yoga, which is the highest form, and you perfect yourself in self-realization. And then you achieve the highest goal of life. So I should stop talking. It's so nice that I'm both of you. It's been a wonderful evening for me. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the love and all the benefits of Bhakti and all the success that you both can have. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for a wonderful class.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Damodar. So how do we end this now? Do I just turn off my camera?
Hare Bol, everybody.
Okay. Okay.